I'll fill in a little bit of a time here as we see more people come on, and then we can kick it off. So, really excited to see everybody today at our monthly use cases demo session. We've been spending a lot of time talking about and learning about vibe coding this year. And we're going to take a brief break from that and hear about a really great new initiative that is happening in the city of Kansas City, a partnership around some geospatial expertise that came out of Google's Moonshot Factory. And I've started to hear more and more about things coming out of Google's Moonshot Factory that are really tailored to impacting the public sector. So I'm really excited to see what's happening in Kansas City. So we'll start off with that, a demo of what's happening there around, I believe it is disaster simulations. And then from there, we will talk a little bit more about vibe coding. We are going to be presenting, some of the compelling things we've heard and learned to the entire coalition at the end of the month. And we want to learn and hear more from you all, right? There's a huge range when it comes to vibe coding too. I'm not going to touch this, which is what most of my developers say. To people who have never been developers, creating small apps, visualizations, dashboards, things like that. Where are we going with this? What are we hoping to get out of it? How can we collaborate across the coalition to find that value and where we're going to go together? All right, all that being said, it is 4 after the hour. I don't want to waste anyone's time. We have a decent sized group here, so we'll get going. So I would like to hand it off to our amazing coalition partner, Andrew, who's always doing cool and amazing things in Kansas City. And I'll have him intro the group he's with and talk about what they are doing with disaster simulation. Take it away, Andrew.
Thank you, Jamie. Such a pleasure to be on the Use Case Working Committee. Good afternoon. My name is Andrew Nui, Chief Digital Officer for the City of Kansas City. And before we get started into the presentation about how drones can be used as an AI first responder, I'd like to first of all introduce Jeff Hinkle, a subject matter expert for the Office of Emergency Management. Jeff, you want to say hi very quickly?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. As Andrew said, my name is Jeff Hinkle, and I'm a drone pilot and on the staff of the Office of Emergency Management for Kansas City.
Thank you, Jeff. And then I'd love to also introduce Josh Jeffrey, Senior Manager for Bellwether at X.
Hey, hi everyone. My name's Josh. I'm excited to join you all today.
All right, and then we will jump into the presentation, and then it's not going to be too long, but then we'll get into it. So if you can just confirm that you can see my screen. Can you guys see my screen? Yes. All right, so this work really was the idea that, what is the problem? But as Jamie kind of alluded to, who is X? We've never really heard of X. X is the Moonshot Factory, born at Google, and if you've ever sat in a self-driving car called Waymo, you know where that came from. But really, what we're talking about today is AI for rapid disaster damage assessment. And so we are the first city with Bellwether to automate the FEMA preliminary damage assessment. And so the idea here really is to replace the subjective ground truth, the surveys, with deterministic machine classification, and then to really accelerate the residential or in other cases, critical infrastructure damage assessments from days to minutes. And so the huge operational bottleneck of this is damage assessments are challenging to scale in post-disaster environments. There is Obviously, lots of danger, particularly when you have live wires, the roads are inaccessible. And above and beyond that, too, the human disaster damage classification is also in many ways subjective and inconsistent because you can only look at so many houses or you can only look at so many things that are damaged. Now, how do you maintain your subjectivity when you're looking at an entire series of damage all across the board? Above and beyond that, there's a significant delay in damage assessment, which then creates a lag in unlocking state and federal aid. And so that's really at the heart of what we're trying to do here in Kansas City. Might we be able to do this in a way that is more, that can release the aid faster and that it's more streamlined and efficient? So this is what we did. We had a simulated natural disaster damage exercise, 120 houses at varying levels of damage across 169 acres of subdivision. We had 60 city staff and CERT volunteers. The Kansas City Fire Department and the police department were involved. And we also deployed a emergency command center. And just to give you an idea of the scale of our city, it's just over 500,000 in population, 319 square miles. But yet, at the same time, we have a really small Office of Emergency Management. Of course, this is not to say that in the event of emergency, we don't have people. We 100% have people. But just to give you an idea of the scale of things, certainly we are not necessarily the only agency with a very small Office of Emergency Management. I'm sure there are tons of others who are also, experiencing such similar staffing aspects as well. And so we want to position this as, might AI be the preliminary first responder? Can AI act as phase zero when ground conditions are still hazardous? And so might there be an opportunity where the drones are able to, at the first sign of when the weather breaks, might drones be able to be launched on missions beyond line of sight to capture high resolution imagery during this initial rapid response phase, and then combined with Bellwether's novel AI models to automate damage classification, generating this content for the accelerated filing of the FEMA preliminary damage assessment. And so the novel approach here really is the imagery that gets generated. The images then get uploaded to Bellwether, and then there is a process by which Bellwether works on their parcel segmentation, and then it begins to analyze the images for damage assessment, and then the output just comes out in the forms that we need. In certain cases, could be a spreadsheet. In a number of other cases, could be a variety of other formats as well. And so here's what that looks like. Okay, so this is what it looks like here, Bellwether in detail. So we capture the individual images. It creates a photo mosaic of the entire path, and then it segments it into the parcels. And then out of those parcels, it runs its damage assessment analysis, and then it puts into a spreadsheet where it tells you exactly how many buildings are destroyed, major, minor, affected, and unaffected. And as a result of that, we get to see the entire subdivision here with the particular affected ones as well as the ones that are unaffected. And so future opportunities that we are particularly also looking into is rapid disaster damage assessment for critical infrastructure and key resources. And ultimately, what we did calculate was imagine if the entire city came to a grinding halt. That is a $42 million per day negative economic impact. And so this is 100% at the heart of it. How might we be able to get our city, our agencies, our people back to normal as soon as possible? And how are we thinking about scaling beyond the pilot? Some of the things that we're engaging with Bellwether on is drone services provider. We do have our own drones, but what happens in the event that an agency doesn't have a drone operator? What happens if our drone operator is tied up on a number of different areas or different things? In addition to that, there is also an emergency management platform that we are also exploring opportunities with as well, together with Bellwether again. And so these are all the different things that are in the works right now, and just wanted to share that with you because really the work that we're doing here shouldn't just stay in the city of Kansas City. It should, really be an opportunity for other cities and other agencies to say, okay, well, hey, this is really interesting. Maybe there are opportunities for my city, my agency, my region, to also start to begin a conversation because ultimately the use cases, as we are engaging here all across the US and beyond, is really for the GovAI coalition, regardless of where you are, if you're at zero, or more towards the 100, you should be able to plug in. And that's really at the heart of the work at the GovAI coalition. And just very quickly, acknowledgements for the Bellwether team, the City of Kansas City team, the Fire Department, Police Department, National Weather Service. But I'll leave you here to learn more about the Bellwether and KCMO story. There's a blog on the X Company website, as well as a video that they have so kindly shared on LinkedIn as well. And so we invite you to be part of that. Well, thank you. Back to you, Jamie.
Thank you so much, Andrew and team. I think you nailed it, Andrew, with just what we're trying to do here in the use cases committee. While we want to help, with the adoption and exploration of impactful AI in the public sector, the big goal is how do we scale some of these systems, ideas, open source, bring this value to the public sector in a way that we're waiting for, right? If you only have 3 or 4 or 5 emergency management staff to help with that. This is the first time I felt like St. Paul, the city of St. Paul is rich and wealthy. We have 7 team members on our emergency management department, and they are absolutely amazing. But they are always looking for tools. They were our first adopters of anything AI, right? Because they're really looking to just, get as much preparedness as possible so they're ready to react and respond when the city needs it. And I don't think that I'm mistaken in that. I mean, within the past year, I've heard that we're still assessing damage from a flood that was many, many years ago. So, yeah, that's really big. I'm curious about, like parallel testing. Like, has there been any testing like on a real disaster, and compare that to what like just the manual way looks like, just to showcase the
Yeah.
value of this.
Absolutely. So I'll say it this way. What I didn't explain was we tested 3 specific tracks. We tested paper. We had a Esri surveyed 1, 2, 3 form, and then we had the drone. And so in one of the previous slides, basically there were exponential. So there were 60 people, assume 60 people at 2 hours. That's literally 120 hours there already. But I'll pass it over to Jeff. Do you have anything else to add in regards to the amount of time required to get this event set up and in a real disaster? Do you have any other thoughts? Please go ahead.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Andrew. I'm still going through the documentation that we did on the manual side, whether it was in the phone app or people that were just doing things on pen and paper. Obviously, because it was an exercise, it hasn't been the top priority. So I've had other ongoing things that I've been dealing with. In a real disaster situation, it would have been done within the next couple of days. However, as Andrew said, it takes a lot of time for not just for people to walk the neighborhood, and this is just the very preliminary. We don't go in any residences. We don't go onto any private property. This is oftentimes in emergency management called a windshield assessment, where you drive down the street and look at the houses and make notes. And one of the things that the drone does, and then the AI speeds up, is we can, if there's anything that blocks traffic, you can't get a car or even a person walking into the neighborhood because of debris, or whether it's the way it's blocked or it's not safe. We can fly, as long as the weather's clear, you can fly a drone over it and take all your pictures. And in a situation where you can fly beyond visual line of sight, which is what our friends in the fire department did for this exercise, the entire flight for that subdivision was 22 minutes. And you couldn't run through the streets and see every house in 22 minutes. And the data is probably it's just as good. The only hindering factor there was uploading the data into Google, which that still was only 3 hours. Isn't that right, Josh? So 3 hours, and that's not that
Because we
long.
didn't have Starlink, that's why. But if we did have
Yeah, that's
Starlink,
exactly right.
it would make a big difference. So
And that is and that will be something that we're addressing internally with our procedures, is that having a emergency bandwidth access to be able to send all that information. And I was looking it up while Andrew was speaking, just for reference. In our local National Weather Service office is just outside the metro area in Pleasant Hill. And in the area that they forecast for, in the month of April, there were 21 tornadoes. So it's been a big season, certainly, but a number of those were in or very close to the Kansas City metro area, including some inside the city limits. And we were lucky and didn't have very much damage and no injuries. But in the case of a much larger tornado, this would be it's a much faster to cover a large area, get all that processed, particularly if it's a very large tornado. It's really easy because everything is destroyed. But if it's other types of damage, or the beginning or the end or the edges of the zone, then it's much faster.
awesome. Thank you, Jeff. I'll pass it over to Josh at Bellwether.
Yeah, I mean, Jamie, maybe some additional context to answer your question. To start really quickly at a step back here, part of the work that we're doing here at Bellwether really is about how to take a lot of the really bleeding edge advancements that have happened recently at the intersection between geospatial data and machine learning. So data about the planet and AI, basically, is another way to say that, and make it useful for people like Andrew and frankly, all of you on the call. One thing I'll mention here is that the speed of advancement with which these technologies are moving, I think has even taken us by surprise. So I would say probably a year ago, trying to imagine doing this simulation would have been like really, really tricky. But one of the things that got us there, actually, I would say there's two things that got us there very quickly that lead to this accuracy metric, I think maybe that you're asking about. One is that we're building on, with Kansas City, we've built on a partnership that we started a number of years back with the National Guard, who have been flying domestic natural disasters that Civil Air Patrol is deployed for. So it's a lot of different agencies. But the long story short is we've got about 2 million images that our systems have been learning about and training on for a couple of years. And then in addition to that, through our partners Fly Guys, who are on the call here as well, that's Brittany and Clay, we've also been able to have them fly additional disasters that train our systems. So what we're seeing over time is basically, and this is very true of AI, right? Like the more and more data you have, and the more that you can train and say to a machine, literally, this is a picture of a house destroyed from a tornado. This is a picture of a house at level 4 FEMA damage, and on and on and on across millions of images. The system starts to get better and better and better, and it leads to these super high accuracy metrics. So part of what we have been really dedicated to over the last number of years is training the system with enough accuracy so that when Jeff and Andrew and maybe someday all of you use it, you have confidence that what the system is spitting back to you very quickly has a level of accuracy that you believe in and that indeed could help unlock funds from FEMA or whatever you want to do with it downstream. But for us, it's really like a data problem and a training problem.
Thank you so much. That's really great. Is this primarily being used like a partnership with Kansas City? Is it being used anywhere else in any other jurisdictions or states?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer this. So at the moment, the work that we did in Kansas City was a pilot of a technology that we should have, frankly, in production here in the next month or two. The goal is to get this in the hands of as many folks that want to use it as possible. So it's certainly not restricted, certainly not exclusive or whatever to Kansas City. Part of what we're thinking right now, and Andrew had a slide up that showed it, along with Fly Guys, another partner we have called TerraFort, who are we're thinking about embedding this essentially alongside their disaster management platform as well. But I would say either, not to sign you up, Andrew, but either through Andrew or through maybe some of the context that you see around, it's like Hello Bellwether at Google, would be happy to figure out like if you think this could be useful for you, if you have a really interesting edge case maybe that's like a weird use case maybe that you'd love to try. We'd love to figure out how we can get this in your hands too.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thanks y'all so much. Anybody else from the coalition? Any questions that you have? I'm definitely going to share this recording with my Director of Emergency Management. Any other questions? All right. Thank you all so very much for sharing your story with us and bringing this valuable use. Like this is where the value is in AI. When you have a team of 4 and a big disaster happens and you need that support to support every single person in your jurisdiction. So really, really, I love and appreciate that use case. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks so much.
All right. So for the second part of our meeting, we are going to focus on talking a little bit more about vibe coding and hearing more from you all on what you are working on, what you're interested in, maybe why you're not working or interested in the vibe coding space. And to help us facilitate that conversation, I think we have Sean from San Jose and then Carrie from Scottsdale, I believe, are going to help us move that forward if you're available. Sean and Carrie. All right, we got a whiteboard here that Sean has put together.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm here from my car, so no camera because I'm driving between meetings. It's sitting in my car waiting to start the next one. But Sean has brought up this lovely whiteboard for us. And what we're thinking about is we have some members of this team have in the last 3 or 4 sessions really brought forward a lot of things that we have been developing using what we're calling vibe coding, right? We're not people necessarily that are software developers, but we have ideas and we need to find a way to visualize those ideas to give them to others. So what we thought we'd do today is ask everyone, vibe coders and non-vibe coders, a few questions to get us started and understand what we can do to work together to develop guardrails that we can take to our organizations to let people vibe code. So we have a whiteboard and we can all go make post-it notes in there and just put our post-it notes answering a few questions out there. And let me give you some of the questions that we came up with. Folks that are vibe coding, what kind of things have you made or attempted to make with vibe coding? What kind of things would you like to try vibe coding, particularly for your work challenges? What kind of hurdles do you see when starting vibe coding yourself? What would you recommend someone to do to get into vibe coding? What would supercharge your ability to build solutions for your agency, or what would enable you to scale and share with other agencies? That is a lot of questions, and I think maybe I can go ahead. Let's see if it lets me do this. If I could
Harry,
just,
I,
yes.
I put the questions in the chat if that's
Oh,
what you were
yay.
thinking
I was going to post them right on the board and it was not letting me. So
of.
thank you for putting them in the chat. Thank you,
Yeah.
Jamie. Did you put the non-vibe coder questions in there as well? Yes. Awesome. Why I didn't think to put them in the chat, I don't know. I really wanted them on our big whiteboard, but it wasn't letting me do that.
All right. And Sean, I thought I saw you starting to put the questions on there, but is it?
Yeah, do you want me to continue?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
put the questions on there and then have people just put sticky notes around the question that you're answering. So we can learn more about what you're doing and what you're focused on or what you're not interested in. Again, that will help us as we're preparing to talk more about vibe coding coalition wide, plan out, how we want to continue working together over the next few months. And really help support the wide range of coalition members that we have across the country. So whoopsie, I just drew. As they're putting those on there, let's see here. You can start just adding any sticky notes to answer the questions. And I'd love to hear from you. I know that I have a lot of colleagues in the private sector here in Minnesota. We have a lot of Fortune 500 companies, and a lot of what is coming forward with AI hits them a couple months before it hits us in the public sector. But one that is hitting all of us in the same time recently is vibe coding and the proliferation of things being built, of prototypes being built and then shipped over to IT to say, okay, make this. Not having the guardrails, the governance around everything. And so this will be really, really key for us. And it looks like I think that the purple ones are really about the newcomers and non-vibe coders, and the yellow questions are on about vibe coders in the room. So please feel free to start sharing your information, grabbing a sticky note on the left-hand side and pulling it over and letting us know your thoughts.
I see lots of names swimming around on the board. Is anybody having a problem making a sticky note?
I am figuring it out if I can figure it out. Hopefully others can.
It is very sensitive, but if down there on the left where Jamie said it's near the bottom under what looks like the equation sign, just click on it, pick a color, drag it around. You'll see a plus sign when it's activated. Oh, I see someone says analytics tools, PDF automations. So what kind of analytics? Whoever's writing that, what would you like to see it do with analytics? That's a good one.
Yeah, if you can hear me, is Brian from City of Novato. We're just looking at kind of just quick analytics on data without for folks that don't know how to use other tools like Tableau or report writers and such. So it's more being able to do the you know, prompting something in a plain English language that, they can pull up some insights on. So that's what we started with.
I like I love that you're doing that with analytics so people can get quick answers and make them look pretty. How are you helping people understand that the data is good data?
So yeah, that's the next step. We because I need to actually test against our data set, so I've actually run some analytics and I need to actually confirm those analytics just to make sure I trust what's happening as well. So I'm hoping if I do that, I can actually put some trust in the data sets, make sure I can kind of constrain how we're looking at the data, what data we're looking at. So that's part of the exploration there because I won't fully trust the data until I validate it myself.
I love coders not excited, non-coders excited. Does anybody have any ideas maybe of how to get coders on board? I think they might feel like, oh, we're taking their jobs. But I like to look at it as I gave you super tight requirements, so now you can do 10 of these in a year instead of 3. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Carrie, I have been hearing from colleagues outside of my jurisdiction, private sector, developers who have undertaken using these tools, and that's exactly what they say. Instead of doing 3 things, I can do 10 things. And it's not for them, it isn't, handing over full control, but instead just enabling them to be more productive. I mean, I don't know how much more productive we can really be or need to be. I mean, that's a time, a conversation for another time. But in my shop, the really talented developer that I talked to, he said, "Well, why would I hand it over to somebody when I've been honing my craft?" And I know exactly kind of how I want to do this and make it work. And it might take just as much time for me to have to check to make sure it's correct. And it might just depend on the resources available to you, right? If you're a one-person shop and you don't have a ton of people supporting the security and data integration and all that stuff, but but if you're a larger shop, you're private sector, and they're really pouring money into this, maybe that is, that is a differentiator.
Yeah, I think it's also we're not very far into we use the tool that's meant for the job best. I know that our coders want to use the exact same way to do everything when maybe it doesn't need to be that full Microsoft stack. What
Mhm.
really is the tool that should be developing this? And as we give them more and more ways to do things, having this sort of help is going to help them as well. I also very much feel, do you need a third party to do the coding validation or ensure that code is safe to deploy? I think yes, we have a rule in particular that any code that is created by AI must be peer reviewed. So if you write a SQL query, you need to send it to the data team. If you write some sort of lightweight app, you need to send it to our application developers and they will review it. I think as long as it meets your enterprise standards, it should be allowed to be pushed to production after those reviews. But how do we get there, and how do we get everybody on the same page and understand the value in this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm just thinking the questions that we put forth, maybe the very first question should have been, are you personally diving into vibe coding? Is anyone in your jurisdiction diving into vibe coding? Right? Because I don't know if we have a lot of people, just based on what we're seeing on here, a lot of people who are really, really in it right now. We have had a bunch of people drop off, but really appreciate the feedback, y'all. This is helpful. We got some comments from people in here. This is great. All right. Well, feel free to wrap up your sticky notes. This is going to be helpful for us as we're continuing to push forward and figuring out, where is the biggest value in supporting the GovAI Coalition, supporting people who are really, moving forward with this new technology, or supporting those who are, not really moving forward in it yet. Where is that value? As we continue to roll out LLM tooling and just see the proliferation of content, I think we're at peak content at this point, and just keeping that in mind. Where are we really providing the value, and not just extra noise? That's really where we want to focus. All right. Well, thank you all so much for sticking around, for providing your comments. We really appreciate it. We'll share the notes. We'll share the recording, and we hope to see you at the end of the month for the coalition-wide meeting, the last Wednesday of May. Thanks, y'all. Have a
Thanks,
wonderful
Jamie.
day. Oh, yep. Thank you. Take care.